Okay, so it's 7:32, so we'll get started. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone, including Shea, for joining us tonight in week 11 of our Isolation Wellness Program. This week's webinar is called Omega with registered dietitian Shea Wolff. Shea will cover what omegas are, why we need them, how to get them, and more. And as always, we encourage you to ask questions. There's a box that says Q&A at the bottom of the screen where you can type yours in, and Shea will answer them at the end of the webinar. Just a little bit about Shea. She's been a registered dietitian for over 13 years. She's also a fitness enthusiast and a spin instructor. Shea works in community nutrition with individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities and autism, as well as one-on-one in her private practice where she covers all areas of nutrition. So Shea, teach us. We're excited to learn.
Sounds good. I'm just gonna screen share. I have a presentation you guys can follow along with me. I'm just gonna do this quickly. All right, we good? Okay, so as Grant said, my name is Shea. I'm a dietitian. Thanks for having me on board this beautiful evening when the sun is shining. I am a dietitian, so I am registered with the college. I also teach spin, and like everyone else probably watching this webinar, we're so pumped about the news released today that we can get back into the gyms, get lifting those weights, and get that community vibe from being actually in person with other people working out. So I'm super excited about that. So today the topic we are going to go over is omega-3 fatty acids. I have a few things that I hope you'll take away, and my goal is just to kind of arm you guys with all of the latest messages. As a dietitian, I typically examine the science and the research and then translate it and then present it to people, and hopefully you can put it into your practice, whether you're giving this information to clients or using it for yourself on a personal level. I want to give you all the facts. So we are going to go over what are omegas, why do we need them. We're going to go back to the basics. We're going to distinguish between three types. Your ALA, DHA, and EPA. Do you need them? Are they essential? Does type matter? And if so, what are the therapeutic doses that have been shown for those health benefits that we hear so much about? So let's get to it. So I'll go a little geeky on you guys here. So a little bit of a review as to sort of the chemistry and the science behind fats. You got your two fats. You got fat or saturated fats. So those are your solid fats, typically your animal sources, your butter. These have the carbon backbone, no double bonds. And then your unsaturated fats. So these get broken down into sort of subtypes. You have your monounsaturated fats, so that's your olive oil, oleic acid. These ones have the double bonds. And then we have polyunsaturated fatty acids. That's where you have your omega-6s and 3s. So that's what we're going to focus on mostly for the next half an hour about a bit. So the different types of fatty acids. So the first one I want to start with is ALA. So this is your plant-based fatty acid, so alpha-linolenic acid. This is where you find your walnuts, your seeds, your flaxseed oil, chia, hemp, soybean oil, those types of things. In the chart on the side of my screen, you can kind of see basically it gives you the content, flaxseed oil being the highest in ALA. So the most bang for your buck would be in that flaxseed oil. I want to just kind of note here that the whole flaxseed you can see is a lot lower. That's because if you're not crunching the seed, you're not releasing those fatty acids. So although it is good to have whole flax seeds in terms of fiber, some people like them for that crunchy texture. When you're wanting to eat them in either oil form or the ground form to actually release that ALA. All right, so then we have our EPA and our DHA. So these are your marine sources. So this is your fish, your algae, your krill. Vegetable sources of EPA and DHA are kelp, seaweed, algae, and then of course your fatty acids. So anchovies, salmon, herring, mackerel. So your EPAs, those are the family that's actually associated with reducing the inflammation response in your body and decreasing the risk for blood clots. The DHAs is in the family of resolvents or protectants. So these are what we're going to give our cells that flexibility. So when we are going to talk a little bit later about heart health, that is the one that's going to contribute to that nice flexibility in the cell wall. We also have our fortified products, which are typically usually fortified with DHA and not EPA. I'm sure you've seen these in the grocery stores. Anything from milk to eggs, which are basically just hens fed a diet high in omegas, all the way to peanut butter and orange juice. So lots of different options out there right now. I do have a chart here with the omega-3 fatty acid content in some of our fish sources, and I'm going to go over that in a little bit more detail the further into the presentation we get. So omega-3s, are they essential? Well, there's two, essential versus necessary. These are two very different meanings in nutrition. Essential means it must come from the diet. Our body cannot generate it from the metabolic process. So the only one that is actually technically essential is your ALA, because there is a conversion, a process that ALA can be converted into EPA. However, that conversion rate is really low, and it can be even further created or converted into DHA, but this conversion rate is even further. So although it's biologically possible to use ALA to make DHA and EPA, the conversion rate is anywhere in between 5 to 10%. So pretty low. So I do, say we need to consume these fatty acids directly and not depend on that conversion. Also, if you have questions, I will try to answer them throughout if I can kind of make sure I figure out how to do that. All right, moving on. So why do you need omega-3s? So there's 4 kind of categories that we see most of the research showing all these health benefits. One thing I do want to mention, it is the single most studied nutrient out there. So there are over 40,000 human clinical trials proving these health benefits and why it's good for our bodies. So needless to say, there's certainly like a strong evidence, strong body of evidence to support what I'm saying today in terms of the different categories. So heart, everybody knows that all omega-3s are good for our heart. I'll get into each one of these a little bit more deeper as we go. Brain health, so mental health, which is really big right now with sort of the chaos going on in the world. I'll talk a little bit about major depressive disorder, concussion treatment in terms of brain health. Also with eye health. So DHA is concentrated in the brain and the eye at super high levels. So this is where we see visual acuity, sort of that health with your eyes and being able to see in those low lit conditions. And then the 4th one would be prenatal. So prenatal lactation and early development, omega-3 super important in these areas as well. All right, so heart health. We all know when you talk omega-3s, or most people know that you take omegas for your heart. And that's certainly true. Strong body of evidence, lots of research. I won't go too deep into the nerdiness of the research, but reduced risk of mortality from coronary heart disease. So at that, we're looking at about 20% and about 30% reduction in heart attacks or sudden cardiac death. It's also been shown, and the markers and the measures are remarkable and very easy to do studies on. But taking omega-3s is going to lower your triglycerides. So this is the fat that's sort of floating around in our blood and is responsible for high cholesterol, for heart attacks, for stroke, those types of things. And also improving blood vessel function. So I talked a little bit about cell wall flexibility with that, with the DHA. So this is how it's possible to see those benefits with blood pressure and your heart vessels. All right, so in terms of brain health, DHA is super concentrated in the brain. And that's where it basically lives, the brain and the eye. I mean, we find DHA in all cells of our body, but this is where it's primarily concentrated. So what studies have shown is it's got increased cognition, improved working memory, and also the prevention of cognitive decline. So as we age, we tend to not be as maybe sharp. So taking your omegas will maybe prevent that and keep your brain healthy and smarter for a little bit longer. So very strong research in those three things. Emerging research is definitely coming, and it's exciting in learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, major depressive disorder, bipolar, and schizophrenia. It's not super established yet, but the concept behind this and also brain injury and concussions, I see a lot of questions from some sports dietitians regarding this, mostly for the treatment of it. The research is hard to do in this area because I don't know, I guess it's kind of ethically tough to do. You can't really bang a few heads and then test, and then in the other group not bang a few heads. And anyways, it's hard to do. So the research is mostly in animal models or in deceased individuals, sort of slices of their brain matter. But the concept behind this, and it's sort of developed by a doctor named Dr. Lewis. So he's big in the football world too. But his protocol was to basically like bathe the brain in DHA. So if you think about that, the concept is if you have an injury to an organ and you sort of bathe it with a nutrient that's known to repair and recover it, then we should see sort of that injury resolve or at least improve at a faster rate. So super interesting for me anyways to know that that's kind of coming about. Major depressive disorder. So in terms of mental health, so the Society of Nutritional Psychiatry research has shown a lot of promising findings in, we know it's hard to treat depression. It's hard to find that right balance of medication. You know, that mix is often really, really hard to do, but they are finding that very high doses, very concentrated doses, upwards of 9,000 grams plus per day, has been shown to be very, very effective in speeding up, so accelerating the medication response. So improving the effects, sort of augmenting that alongside traditional therapy for depression. So more research is needed, but super cool, because we know mental health is big, and if we can treat it with something as simple as omega-3s, you know, a natural nutrient, then that is awesome. So eye health is the second or the third sort of topic I want to get into. So your eyes are about 65% concentrated with DHA. So we can just kind of see how important that is in early development. Actually, United Kingdom, it's so well established, this research, that they have two sort of concrete health claims in this area. One being macular degeneration, as well, and then the second one being the alleviation of symptoms of dry eye. So basically, DHA in your eye is going to enhance those photoreceptors, making that light signals transmit very, very quickly. Visual acuity is basically for that. So prenatal health would be sort of the fourth area, so the maternal intake. Because we know if omegas are good for the adult brain, the adult heart, the adult eyes, then of course we maybe want that to start right from conception. So they are showing that right from conception, the first 1,000 days of life, so about 2 years old, extra omega-3s are essential for sort of developing the baby's brain, central nervous system, retina development. Yeah, those would be the top ones. So in terms of maternal health, we strongly recommend supplementation during pregnancy. I don't even think you could find a prenatal without high level of omega-3s. Even infant formulas, you'll see right on there, DHA added. And then when we do work with moms that are breastfeeding, making sure that she has enough omega-3, EPA, and DHA in her diet, because it is going to pass through the breast milk. Yeah, but during pregnancy, preventing those premature babies and preventing low birth weight babies, strong findings there. All right, so now we've kind of talked about the science and the why these are good for you, which we all know omegas are good for you. But what do we need? So do you tell your client or yourself, you're always hear this, get more omegas, but what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like? Does it mean eat more fish? Does it mean buy, omega fortified eggs? Does it mean take cod liver oil, get your flax in your oats? What exactly does this mean? The important thing to know is that only some of these sources that I have on my screen or that I've mentioned earlier are going to get you the right levels of EPA and DHA to actually get those benefits. So it's not enough just to say get more omegas. We need to be more specific. We need to get more EPA and more DHA, omega-3 fatty acids. So that's what we need to be focusing on. And as I mentioned earlier, EPA and DHA, they're not technically essential, so they don't have DRIs associated with them, so dietary reference intake. However, we can look at target guidelines to sort of give us an idea of what's happening, what people are consuming, where we're at, and where we sort of need to be at that optimal level of health. Okay, so Health Canada recommends eat at least 5 ounces of cooked fish every week. I think this is a very vague statement and not high enough, I guess you could say. Generally speaking, if you eat 5 to 8 ounces of fish per week, it should give you the recommended level, which is around 250 milligrams of EPA and DHA combined. However, we do know that, yeah, you can kind of see through my chart below that those are sort of the recommendations for every day for EPA and for ALA. I kind of have them categorized there. And then this can be broken down per week because these are fat-soluble vitamins. They're going to stay sort of stored in your fat cells a little bit longer than, say, a water-soluble vitamin. So when your B vitamins, they kind of get excreted a lot quicker. So it also depends on your food source. So people aren't generally eating 2 servings of fish per week. And if they are, it's not likely the ones that they need. So unfortunately, your coconut shrimp and your tilapia fillet, those aren't going to cut it. So when we're talking about these fish servings per week, we're talking about your oily fishes. So your sardines for lunch, your salmon, those types of things. All right. So omega-3 intake needs. So I have two sort of charts here. Basically, when we look at ALA, because it's essential, it actually is a DRI, so it's a little bit easier to measure sort of what's happening in terms of an adequate intake and what actual intake is. So you can see that we're getting enough, like we are totally getting enough ALA. So that's why it's important. That's not really what we should be focusing on. Number one, we're getting enough. Number two, it's really not the omega-3 that's giving us all those exceptional health benefits. So say a female, this is an average, but you can read it right there, but 1.6 grams adequate intake, we're actually getting far past that. So that's good. However, if we take a look lower at the lower chart for EPA and DHA, this is a combined value. So what is considered an adequate intake? 250 milligrams, but I think that's extremely low, personally. What we're actually consuming, we are a far cry from. So we're not nearly meeting that. The general population is not coming close to that. And what they are actually finding is it's actually a linear relationship. So basically what that means is the more EPA and the more DHA that you get, the greater your benefits are. So the higher the dose, the more you're going to see in terms of risk reduction for those heart issues, for hormone balance, which I'm not talking too much about in this presentation, but yeah. So marine omega-3 supplementation significantly decreased risk of heart attack death, and coronary heart disease. Omega-3 blood levels is kind of the new. You can actually test your blood levels. I have not done this, but kind of neat. They might even be saying that it's a better predictor of heart health than cholesterol levels. So interesting to kind of keep an eye on that and see where that goes. All right. Okay. So how do we boost our intake? specifically with EPA and DHA. Now let's put this into sort of practical matters. Where do we start? Well, first, let's definitely get in those 2 fish meals a week. This needs to be done consistently. This should be the norm. So every week you have at least 2 servings of your fatty, your oily fishes per week. If you do this, you're probably going to get around 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA in your day. But it has to be done consistently. And as I mentioned before, it has to be the right types of fish. So it has to be your high quality seafood. They can't be poor sources. So although I know a lot of people are, you know, we love the leanness, we love the high protein of tilapia and cod and shrimp, but it's not going to give you those omegas. They're still fine to have, obviously. It's a great protein source, and yeah, it's awesome to have. But on top of that, I think it's important to get those other types of fats, as I mentioned before. Yeah, so this would be a good thing to start with. I think is just really focusing on those high quality servings of fish per week. What would be, you can kind of see here in terms of the food sources of omega-3s in the fish. You can see salmon, 3-ounce serving, which is a pretty small serving, 1.8 grams of omegas, so that's high. And then all the way down to shrimp, which is 0.24. So if you kind of do the math, that's about, I think I figured it's about 10%. So shrimp, you're only getting about 10% of the EPA and DHA as you would be if you were having salmon. Another high source, which is kind of disgusting, is beef brain. So if you're into eating brain, they have just as much EPA and DHA as salmon. So if you want to do that, go for that. I don't know much about the nutrition otherwise in brain. Someone can let me know how it tastes too. Okay, so even better than just having the fish would be, let's aim higher. So in a perfect world, I would say add in another fish source. So let's aim for 3 per week and see where that goes. I feel like this might be far-fetched when I work with counseling individuals. It's kind of one of those things that's like, well, if the general population is not even getting 2 servings, how can we expect them to get 3? But I would still recommend it. Then I would go for other food sources. So, you know, when you're out at restaurants or, you know, special occasions, over those mussels, or fortification. So although it's not a lot, you're looking at about 30 to 100 milligrams of serving in fortified products. It's incremental, and I think that every little bit helps. So, you know, buy the omega eggs, you know, add in the flaxseed, buy the orange juice that's got some DHA in it. It doesn't hurt anyways, and I think every little bit certainly helps. Yeah. So what would be the best strategy and the best plan? So on top of the food sources, so food first obviously is going to be my first suggestion for that. Go for your quality fish. Fortification, so choose when you're able. I mean, some of the products can be a little bit more expensive, so your fortified products. But when you can, I would suggest people do this. And then supplementation, I think, is big in this. With this nutrient, I think supplementation should sort of be in everyone's game plan. I always say omegas and vitamin D. If you're going to take anything, those would be my 2. So supplementation, it's an ongoing baseline. It's kind of what we call a safety net. It's affordable. It's going to ensure those constant levels. So on those times when, you know, your fish intake's low, or I don't know, it's kind of one of those buffer things where it's like, at least you know that you're having your supplement, you're getting those omegas in on a sort of a daily basis. Yeah. So there's tons of different supplements out there. I'm going to go over just a little bit about this, and I know that I watched Brett's webinar last week, and he did a really good job explaining about supplementation. I know he touched on omega-3s as well, so I would also direct you to him. Hopefully that's okay. I said that because he had some good information there. But there's a bunch of different different routes and different types that you can go. So you go old school. So you could go with your cod liver oil in a liquid form. You could go with the fish oils or krill oils, and the krill would be your crustacean. There's lots of flavored liquids out there. I've seen some called swirls or smoothies or something like that. Apparently they taste good. I actually haven't tried any. I've tried a fish oil capsule with It was strawberry flavored, and that wasn't too bad. Yeah, okay. We also have gummies. Those are good, but those ones you have to be really, really, really careful in looking at your EPA and DHA levels, making sure that they actually have a little bit in them. Some of them are pretty poor in terms of the quality and what's actually in them. You have your tablets. Yeah, and then algae oil. So vegetarians and vegans, there's certainly options out there, and I'm pretty sure Brett touched on this too, or allergies. A lot of people have fish allergies, so what do you do in that regards? I would direct you to, omegas originate from marine microalgae. So there are supplements out there. I feel like Brett might have said you had Vital Health for that. I'm not 100% sure about that. But they do exist and they are out there. And I think it's actually really important that vegetarians or vegans do go a route of supplementation, because, they can have all the flaxseed oil they want, but, and they're going to be super high on their ALAs, but their DHA and their EPA won't be met through those foods. So you can eat all the flax and nuts and seeds if you want, but you're not going to hit your EPA and DHA level. So supplementation is super important, especially for that population. I don't really know how to see if there's questions, so I actually apologize for that. There might be though. Maybe I'll take a second and check, or I can just answer them. I'll answer them after, because I don't want to mess this up. I'm not the best technology person. Okay, wait. I think I figured it out. I've heard mixed reviews about the omega-3 supplements and the omega-3 6-9s all in one. What are your thoughts on comparing the two? I mean, we don't need any more omega-6s or 9s right now. And in fact, the conversion I was talking about earlier, omega-6 actually competes with omega-3 for absorption. So I would personally say just go for the omega-3s. I don't think, usually when you're going to get a combo, it's going to be a lot higher than the omega-3s and the 6s and 9s. But I would just go for the omega-3s just to avoid, just because for number one, likely you're not going to be missing out on the 6s and 9s deficient in that. And number two, yeah, those ones are going to compete in the metabolic process of conversion. So if there is any conversion going on, yeah, there might be something. All right. So supplement labels, these can also be tricky, especially with fish oil supplements. How to read a label? I'm sure most people watching this presentation read labels, but you can be just surprised. It can be a little bit challenging. My first thing is I never really read the front of the label. Great, it's telling me the product, it's telling me what it is, but it doesn't really tell me what's actually in it, and that's really not the info I need. So what you do want to look at is the supplement facts label, which is very similar to what you would call a nutrition facts label on food product. Always starting with a certain size. Is it one capsule or soft gel? Is it two? You might have to do some math. And then you want to look to the actual levels, and I have them kind of broken down with the red box. So they're going to be listed out individually, because as you can see here on the front, it says 1,200 milligrams. Somebody might say, oh, that's awesome. I know Shea said I needed at least 250. I mean, that's really low. I personally go for above 500. Anyway, so somebody might look at that 1,200 and be like, all right, good to go, grab this bottle. But if you actually look into it, the EPA and DHA doing a little math, it's really only giving you what is less than 200 milligrams of your EPA and DHA combined. So for this supplement, if somebody bought this one based on the supplement facts, I would say I would take two soft gels for sure to get those levels. Yeah, so that's just kind of something to keep in mind when you are reading into those labels. And this kind of compares the two. The other one I have obviously has higher content of EPA and DHA. It's in one capsule. So both products are one capsule However, in the one on the right side, you're getting far more EPA and DHA in this product. So yeah, just kind of pay attention. So why does this number differ? There's other things in fish oils, just like, what do I compare? Just like olive oil, it's not 100% oleic acid. There's other things in it. That's the same as the fish oil. You're not going to get, you know, there's going to be other fillers in there and other types of oils in there as well. So, yeah. That's my little spiel on supplement. Okay. I hope I answered that question properly. If I didn't answer this question about the mixes of 369, can you write me back? Because I don't know if I did. Okay. So I'm coming towards the end of my little spiel on omegas, but basically to kind of wrap it up, the key points I wanted to get across is all omegas are really healthy for you. We need them all. They're all going to be good for you. You can't really go wrong, but we know that we are getting enough ALA, so we are getting, you know, the fatty acids from the flax seeds, your nuts, your seeds, your soybean oil, those types of things, but we're not getting enough of EPA and DHA. Most people need more, and like much more. They're good in so many ways, so many health benefits coming out. The major ones, you know, your heart, which I spoke about, brain, mental health, eye health, and prenatal or maternal health, as well as some other ones. And I'm only touching on the ones that are completely science and evidence-based, because as a registered dietitian, I am sort of protected by a regulatory body, so we can't talk on, you know, people's experiences or hearsay or sort of new fads or trends. Yeah, and also that not all fish is created equal. So making sure that you are getting those great sources. So yeah, and my way of approaching this would be to boost your intake. Food first is always sort of something that a dietitian likes to roll with. So seafood is good, but seafood plus fortified foods plus supplements is going to be your best and strongest strategy. Yeah, and with vegans and vegetarians, making sure you are getting that in a supplement form would be strongly recommended, because it's going to be very difficult to meet your EPA and DHA needs through diet. All right. So I think that's it. I have my email address at the bottom if you have questions later on or don't think of them now, and I can try to answer them that way for you guys. But if there are other questions, fire away. I'll try my best. And oh, oh my goodness, okay. This chat, I'm not sure if I was supposed to be reading this. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in our comments in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well. Yeah, and I'm awesome that Brett's responding to some of these too, because I know, yeah, you're definitely the guru in terms of, yes, the high doses. I have been supplementing fairly high doses of omega-3 and also vitamin D. Vitamin D up to 4,000 to 5,000 IU per day. Now that I tend to spend 1 hour a day outside the sunlight, should I stop taking the vitamin D? I'm going to say no. In vitamin D, the research behind it is so promising. And when we're looking at our, when we're looking at our upper limit level, so that's the limit when there's no negative effects, so there's no toxicity risk, whatever. That is 5,000. So I think if you're taking 4,000 to 5,000 a day, that's completely fine. And then also remember that vitamin D can also be taken weekly. Some docs prescribe it monthly. So it's kind of one of those things I have some docs that recommend 20,000 a week. So it just depends on how you dose it, and that can also tell you that it is fat soluble. It's going to be stored, and then your body can kind of use it as it goes. So I wouldn't stop that at all. Yeah, I take 2,000 to 3,000 a day, no matter if it's winter or summer. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. What age should children start taking omega-3 supplements? Very good question. Well, I think now. I think at any age. I mean, we see the research from conception to the first 1,000 days of life. That's something that's recommended, sort of a very established recommendation. You know, first 2 years of life, building that brain health. But I have a 6-year-old son, and he still takes omega-3 gummies. So I think there's no harm in it. Because I don't know about you, but not a lot of children are into fatty fish or, you know, those types of food sources that we're talking about. But I think having, you know, a gummy, there's lots of children versions of the omega-3 gummies, lots of Disney ones out there. So I would start it as soon as they can. Yeah. And also, if you can, start buying the fortified eggs and of course the milk. Yeah. Do it. You're welcome. That's all we have.
Shea, I have one more question.
Fire away.
Okay. Maybe this is going too far, but I'd like your opinion. I've read and heard some reports that the type of salmon affects the amount of good omega-3s in your diet. And what I've heard is that a Pacific Coast salmon, like a sockeye or a coho or so whatever, is higher in omega-3 fatty acids versus, say, an Atlantic farmed salmon. Is there truth to that, or is that, like, you know, being a little too meticulous and taking it too far in your?
I think there is truth, because there is truth, but it is taking it too far, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So yes, they are going to differ in value. However, I don't think it's going to be significant enough to stress about.
Okay.
So I wouldn't focus on that. I think, you know, just getting in the salmon is going to be good. But there is going to be a difference. I mean, the difference between, say, a fresh tuna to a canned tuna in terms of omega content is there. So certainly there will be for the different salmons as well. But I wouldn't focus on it or stress on it.
They definitely differ in cost.
Yeah.
The sockeye salmon is like way more expensive.
Yeah. So if you're spending the cash for the extra 50 milligrams of omega, I wouldn't.
Okay, yeah, perfect. That's what I thought.
Spend it on yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there a liquid supplement suitable for babies? Depends what we're talking about. Babies. I know if the baby is formula fed, then all formulas are going to be fortified with DHA. And if it's a baby and it's breastfed, I would just encourage the mother to take that supplement. And omegas are passed through the breast milk quite efficiently. So I wouldn't necessarily give a liquid supplement to a baby. I would rely on their sort of their source of nutrition, which is either probably going to be a breast milk with formula.
Looks like that's it for questions.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, Shea. It was awesome, and
You're welcome.
I definitely learned a lot. And we really, really appreciate you spending your nicest night of the week with us.
It's okay. It's a break from my family. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Bye.